If you enjoy my work, please subscribe and like. Also, check out my Patreon for early access, patron bonuses, and stay sparkly. Foul is Fair, Chapter 39, Resolutions and Revelations. After the party, Riacard was taking audiences. Megan stood at this side and watched, while Aisling and the Count remained perched on the arm of the chair, looking quite comfortable with the arrangement, aside from what Megan was pretty certain was a brief narrowing of eyes at the Grey Lady's back. The Unseelie may not so much forgive and forget as just remember to forgive anyway, outside of keeping a closer eye on the suspected, but Aisling was still Seelie after all. "Counts to 18, Riacard said suddenly. "What's putting a rough edge on our Aisling's good mood?" "Caw!" "Well, I don't see how it isn't your place to say," the Unseelie King debated casually. "You were asked the question." Megan, intending to save the Crow and the Pixie embarrassment, and have any reason to talk to her dad more, decided to explain. "We think the Grey Lady helped Orla coordinate the ambush and everything." "Oh?" Riacard asked as the room got quieter. Megan nodded. "She didn't want you rescued. Seems like she thinks you're too irresponsible and that the way to keep everyone out of danger was to let the Queen win." The tarnished figure turned. The empty eyes stared. "Riacard, I didn't," the haunted whispers began. "Of course you didn't, old friend," the chocolatey voice said calmly. His smile was easy. Too easy. The Grey Lady stood blankly for a moment, then left in silence, her lights flickering around her. Riacard remained silent for a moment, staring at the floor. "Are you going to go looking for her?" Megan asked. "To stop her or arrest her? Though nobody seemed to stay arrested around here." "Of course not. I can't go running out on my own audience. And revenge is just inefficient for people like us. Besides, she's always been in pain. I can guess a little at how it must feel," he said slowly, with a look at Megan that was the closest she'd seen on him to worried. "But of course, I have hopes to never know for sure what real grief, real loss, feels like." He smiled. "It just wouldn't be my style." Megan was still reflecting on all this when her father spoke again. "Justin of Ludlow." "Your Majesty," Justin replied, stepping forward and dropping to one knee, head bowed. "I've come to understand that you put yourself at great risk helping to carry out my daughter's plan. Now, just to be certain, you do understand you've already paid off all obligation to Fairy and its royalty, yes?" "I do, Your Majesty." "Then why return? You've no kin here." "I need no kin involved to protect the world," he paused. "Or Megan, or Lanny. They've helped me. And it's what a brave knight would do, yes?" "I'm no knight, not even quite old enough, but I'd like to think so." "Age is just a number, albeit a very large number in some of our cases. I've known plenty of humans who called themselves knights. Most of them had neither your conviction nor courage. That's good enough for me." He drew the jeweled sword, pondering it, and finally stood. "Now, let's see. I've seen Orla do this plenty of times." He glanced at Aisling. "How did that first part go?" "By the power of Grayskull," she offered helpfully. "Ah, yes," Riacard answered with a smile, returning his attention to Justin. "By right of being king and the power entrusted to me by the court, I declare your trials at an end. You are a knight of 2 realms, and one of the few mortals welcome in Fairy. You are now Sir Justin of Ludlow." He tapped the sword on each of Justin's shoulders. "Or Seattle, if you like. I do recommend the place. Now, rise. You have a lot of knightly things to do. Yes. Start with fetching the Clive Solish. It has better things to do, and it would be rather inconvenient for those without the sheath to try and get it, even if I had another proper human on hand, which I don't. Besides, you've proven yourself capable. I think you should keep it." Justin's eyes went wide, glancing at the sheath. Then he bowed. "Of course, Your Majesty," he responded, before rising to his feet. "Good," Riocard said as he sat again, gesturing with a casual dismissal. "You'll fit in fine, clearly having plenty of court experience. We're just like any other court, only more so." Justin nodded as he backed away and started looking around the court. Riocard moved on, gesturing to Kasha. Kasha stepped up, flanked by the leopards. Maxwell looked somewhat more of a twin for his brother than usual, decked out in head bandaging, expertly applied by Care. The satyr bowed before Riocard. "I've been hearing rumors you caused quite the stir yesterday," he offered her with a grin. "The healers have been working through the night." A pause before he added, "Well done." "Thank you. I live to serve." "No doubt. Then you'll be glad to hear you get to keep on serving. I trust you won't mind giving the princess a hand now and then, seeing as you're neighbors." Kasha glanced at Megan and grinned. "No problem at all." "Good. Then go have a chat with the huntsman and have him get the wild hunt ready. I've heard you and the hounds got acquainted already, so you won't mind leading the hunt, as soon as your companions are suitably healed. Tell him that I said you get to pick the subject of the hunt." Megan suddenly felt very sorry for someone or something, but wasn't about to ask. Kasha grinned savagely, gesturing for the leopards to follow as she turned and walked out of the room. Lonnie followed, taking her turn as Riocard paid his debts without once mentioning obligations or favors. "Ah, not always one of my greatest fans," Riocard said with a smile. "Thank you." "It was necessary," Lonnie replied, still looking tired, but pleased with the results of the day. "Your family has always been very good with necessary. I can appreciate that. It sometimes sounds too tedious for me to quite comprehend, but it's good that someone is. And, yes, family, you're very close." "We are," Lonnie agreed, looking a little more cautious. "Commendable," Riocard said. "Then your father has the winter off to see to whatever projects he likes. I think we can manage here. And your little brother will fall under my earlier decree of protection as well. I trust that suits?" Lonnie's caution turned to relief. Her shoulders slumped and Megan could see her struggling to maintain her composure and not start tearing up. Megan wasn't quite sure why Lonnie'd gotten so quickly worried about Mac, but she rescued her friend, stepping up to give Lonnie a hug until Lonnie had a few seconds to compose herself. Yes. Thank you, Majesty," she responded. "Oh, and then there's Care," Riocard began. "First and foremost, I think your friend has had quite enough stress and attention for the day. The next time you see Care, though, please pass on that I think a promotion is in order, should Care want to pick a kitchen to be in charge of." Lonnie nodded and stepped back. Megan ascended the dais again and was the only one close enough to hear Riocard addressing Aisling and the Count. "And the two of you, what would you like?" Megan was startled, finally hearing him at least acknowledge a sense of indebtedness to anyone, but got the feeling that the intense loyalty of the pixie was returned. "Caw! Caw!" "Yes, Count, that can be arranged. I shall procure a bust of Pallas from my chambers forthwith." His gaze turned to the pixie. "Make that 2, she said. "One for your room and one for Megan's, because I'm going back with Megan." "You're certain? There's still the matter of the Ellen Tretchend hunt left unfinished." Aisling hesitated, then grinned. "Okay, so right after that I'm going back. She can probably manage without me for a few days, but she has so much to learn, and I'm really good at explaining things." "Of course you are, my friend. Of course you can go back. She'll need you." Justin had still not left to fetch the sword. He was fidgeting slightly, staring at the far side of the room. A handful of she-women gathered not far from the door, talking amongst themselves. Despite the lack of dress code, they were dressed in party finery in tones suitable for the season. Beyond the dresses, it was hard to truly differentiate them, for they all had the slightly alien beauty of the she, a bit too perfect, with pale skin, eyes of impossibly bright blue or green, and hair the color of spun platinum. When they noticed Justin's looking, they smiled back in bright, manic unison. Megan stepped off the dais to approach him. "What's wrong? You like the night thing, right?" "Yes, very much. I'm proud to serve," he said. "But I know a little too much about courts, and a good bit about the fair folk on top of it. The combination... I need a favor." "Okay, but favors get complicated, and Dad seems to be not that kind of favor. I'm added to the court novelties. It would be less awkward, easier to avoid offending some courtiers, if the princess beat them to it." He lowered himself to kneel again, this time to Megan. "May I have a token from you?" Megan blushed. "A token from me? I know you. I trust you." Thanks. I trust you too." Megan sort of understood, finally. In the movies, ladies gave their knights scarves, embroidered things, or occasionally flowers. "But I don't have a handkerchief or anything." She bit her lip for a moment, then grinned, stepping forward. "Sir Knight, I'm honored," she replied, as she removed her Seahawks hat, placing it on Justin's head. He looked a little confused, but most of those watching just grinned, the platinum blonde she-ladies less so. "I hope that will do." "Very nicely, my lady. Thank you. And now that we're through all the knighting, just Megan, please." "All right, my Megan," he responded, rising again, eyes up towards the brim of the cap, still getting used to it. "Great. Now go get your sword so we can all go home tomorrow."